My third semester of grad school starts in 4 days. I was full-time in the first semester. The second semester was a summer semester where I took one course, so it was a five-course load over the course of my first 2 semesters, and I will be taking 2 courses this semester. And I chose to take 2 courses this semester so that I could focus on other things, such as the continued development of the YouTube channel, the continued development of other social media, the continued working towards finding employment with my degree. Unfortunately, the economy is quite bad right now, so that is not the easiest thing in the world for me to do, but we are working on that. I was employed briefly at a hotel that unfortunately did not work out. There were multiple problems on both ends, especially considering I did not receive any training. I later went on to read the reviews of the hotel and found out that they had bed bugs. So, of course, I went, sprayed my bed, sprayed everything. Thankfully, there were no bed bugs that I found, and I'm very happy about that. Grad school has been very interesting for me. I am getting a educational master's degree in EDM, not a master's of science in education or a bachelor's of science in education. I have a bachelor's of arts in English. I do not have a teaching certification. I was considering teaching at one point, however, due to several things, I'm not going to do that, including the current culture, including some of the things that happened at my school. Essentially, the school wanted me to delete my social media completely. Um, and I was not comfortable doing that. Well, yes, I will admit that some of the things I post on social media are absolutely wild, and I genuinely don't know if you would want somebody teaching English who goes online and says that the Earth is a trapezoid. But people actually falling for that is more interesting. I find it very, very interesting that that happened, and I am currently excited about my courses because I had a little bit of a situation last semester where in 2 of my courses, the professor, or well, in 3 of the 5 courses that I've taken so far, the professor wanted us to use generative AI for things like brainstorming. I was not happy about that. Joining me for this video, remember, if you like the video, like the video. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, share, and ring that bell if you want to get notified every time a new video goes live. I publish multiple videos a day. Part of the reason I was not happy about that is because I am in general a creative person. Sure, some of the things I might create might not be great. Some of the things I create might be awesome. Some of them might be terrible. It's a whole situation. It's a spectrum. And the reason I enjoy creating is because I get to put the things that are in my brain onto paper, onto video, and it's my idea. And if other people resonate with it and like it, that's great. If they don't, that's also great. I got to create things, and that makes me feel happy. It's a hobby of mine. It's something that I enjoy. And because I had been thinking about teaching English language arts, I was going to teach students how to be creative. And basically, I wasn't going to tell them how to think or what to think about the things that they should do when they're creative. My thought process was, brainstorm, think about your ideas, go through, make mistakes, get feedback, stuff like that. But instead, that professor was teaching us that we should essentially have our students outsource the brainstorming to generative AI like Copilot and ChatGPT. I was incredibly unhappy with that because it showed me that he believed that students were not able to be creative. And that was rather surprising to me. We had one assignment that very, very much upset me, and I will go over that in a moment. First, I want to talk about what's going on with the channel. So I'm on TikTok still, I'm on Instagram still. You'll see at the end of my video about a minute long thing talking about the outro that everybody does. If you don't listen to it, you don't listen to it. If you do listen to it, great. That adds to my watch time on a video. And I appreciate that because obviously you need 4,000 hours of watch time in order to monetize on YouTube. And I currently stand at 1,225. I have been going live pretty much every day from about 1:45 to 2:30 the last couple of days, and I think that's going to continue, although I don't know about tomorrow, due to the Mariners game being at 12:35, or, well, as I'm filming this, due to the Mariners game being at 12:35 a.m. I also may be going out on Thursday when this video premieres, to a local to a Buffalo Bison's game, the local minor league team. I don't know yet. I'm not 100% sure what my financial situation will be with that. Um, Simply due to waiting for money to deposit. Um, and it's a split doubleheader, so it would be worth it for me to go. It would be two 7 inning games. This channel will continue to have the sports predictions videos basically every day. I do believe that there are no days between now and the end of the year where there is not a day that there will be sports predictions. I will continue doing the Mariners recaps. Yesterday or Monday, unfortunately, I was unable to do that because I had an MRI at the time that the game was going on, and I felt like crap. Just genuinely felt like absolute crap while doing it. So I chose not to. I chose to rest and take care of myself. If the Mariners make the playoffs, Mariners recaps will continue in the playoffs. The good news is that my courses are online asynchronous, meaning that I just need to log in, get the work done, and once the work is done, I most likely will only have to respond to a couple of discussion board posts or things of that nature. And with that, I really don't see there being much effort in me doing that. I will be obviously doing the reading, interacting with classmates, stuff like that. But because it's 2 classes and I did 4 classes while running a almost 2,500 person convention last semester, I don't feel like I'm going to have an issue with that. And I will continue to post the videos. Right now, it's August 19th, 2025, and I am planning on filming a bunch of videos so that I can have videos scheduled between now and September 30th to have one video come up per day. And I think that's something that will be fun. I make videos. That's one of the pieces of content that I make. And I make my videos and I've learned how to edit. I've been learning how to use things like editing. But I've also been learning how to do things like storyboarding and stuff like that. I've taken the skills I learned in my English degree and applied it to this. You go from outline to draft to edit and stuff like that, and then you have your final and you post it. And I always have to brainstorm an idea for a video. Sure, maybe the video is the attempt of every Mariner ever as a series, and those videos are relatively easy to do, because it's just me doing a little bit of research and telling you about it so that all the information is in one place for you. And I enjoy those videos. Or maybe it's me talking about the Bible. Or I had to do a brainstorm for this video. I was like, what do I talk about? So that I have a video up for Thursday of this week. And the professor told us that we needed to put an idea into Copilot and film the video that it said. So I told it to give me a day in the life. It gave me a day in the life. It was blah, 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 blah. And then I ended up filming a day in the life that was nothing like it because what it gave me was absolutely ridiculous and a bit anti Semitic. I'm not 100% sure why it was anti Semitic because I didn't ask it for a day in the life of a Jewish person. I didn't ask it for a day in the life of an Israeli citizen or anything like that, but it was. And what bothered me was he wanted us to use that for our storyboarding and going through that. I did choose to do the assignment as it was assigned. However, I was very upset with it and changed things and did a second version where I did my own storyboard. He said he thought that it was good for students who can't draw. And my immediate thinking was we should never be telling students they can't do something. Students may have less talent than other students, but if you go and tell a student that they cannot draw or that they cannot write or that they're not doing something, they're going to internalize that. And as a student, if you internalize the I can't, I can't, I can't, it's going to potentially lead you to learned helplessness. It's going to potentially lead you to not performing to the best of your ability. It's going to be an issue. And because of that, I got very, very upset about the AI. I actually scheduled a meeting with the dean that went incredibly poorly. I'm a member of a club that meets regularly on campus, and I also had on-campus classes No, I didn't have on-campus classes last semester. I just did a decent amount of my work on campus because I treated it like a job. I went to campus, I did the club stuff there. So I was mad enough after this was said that I walked into the dean's office and asked for a meeting. The dean wasn't available, so her assistant was like, "Let me give you blah blah blah," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And we set up a meeting, and I was very upset. I went into the meeting, and she was like, "No, you should be telling students to use AI. It's just like a calculator or a search engine." And the answer to that is no, it is not. Is a calculator a form of artificial intelligence? I would argue no. I would also argue that generative AI is also not a form of artificial intelligence and is just predictive text, which predictive text is fine in some instances. For example, when I'm texting on my phone, let's say my mother texts me, "Hey, did you talk to grandma today?" And the predictive text says yes, no, what's going on? Those are normal options because grandma and grandpa are having issues that me and mom have to deal with, what me, mom, and dad have to deal with because grandpa is dying on hospice. So that predictive text saves us a few seconds. That's fine. But I was considering actually looking into paralegal studies at the local community college, but I wanted to get information about other areas here. Because I was thinking, maybe get like a paralegal degree, have 2 degrees, see what I can get for some sort of employment. And I was like, you know what? It's possible, it's plausible, it's a thing. But what I typed in was paralegal studies where I live. And it showed me that the Millard Fillmore College had one. There isn't a Millard Fillmore College anymore. Yes, Millard Fillmore founded the university I go to, but they like to distance themselves from him just due to the fact that there was a lot of like racism. The thing is, like, you have to understand how progressivism goes. Like, that's a thing. Like, people get progressive and progressive and progressive. It went from black people are slaves and not people to the black people aren't slaves, but only the men are people to everybody is people and everybody's a citizen. Stuff like that. Which, like, trust me, I believe that everybody's a citizen, everybody is a person, and nobody's illegal and all of that. But like with Millard Fillmore, he had beliefs that were a little slightly progressive for his time, I'll be honest. But I went into that meeting thinking about it, and she wanted us to think of it as a search engine or a calculator. I can ask it one plus one, it'll usually tell me two. But if you ask it two plus two, it'll say fish sometimes. Sometimes it'll say four. If you try to play it in a game of chess, it doesn't really know what it's doing. Although I will say that Google with Gemini is doing a really good job. Check out Gotham Chess's video on that because it's been doing a really good job. And AI in chess, actual artificial intelligence, which really isn't artificial intelligence, it's an algorithm, is really cool. And totally support that. I think that's really cool. It actually has solved chess, I think, up to if there's 16 or fewer. It's either 15 or 16 or fewer pieces on the board, and I think that's bloody astonishing. We could never do that as humans, but creating an algorithm, we can do that. And we can use the algorithm to check things. I actually learned in my math class how simple algorithms can work. I can check to see if an ISBN number is valid on an ISBN 9 or an ISBN 13 because of the algorithm rhythm I learned. You have to add up the numbers, and then there's a check digit, and you have to check, and if it's right, the ISBN number is valid. You can check, be like, oh, that's why I can't find that ISBN. And it's definitely not a search engine because what it does is it takes the sum of everything and regurgitates the average. And it shouldn't be used for things like research, because the average is going to be just that, average. The average is not going to help you understand a scientific study. The average is not going to give you the information you want. If I type into ChatGPT right now, how much does gas cost? It's not going to give me a good answer. Um, like at all. And I find that rather astonishing that that's something that the professor thought that the dean thought was good, was that you could have it do things. And it doesn't do what you want it to do. And then I got another class where the use of generative AI in that class didn't upset me because the class was curriculum integration or technology and curriculum integration. So we need to evaluate emerging technologies. We need to see old technologies. And what I chose to do with that class was take it with a open mind. Because I was like, this is exactly where something where we as students who are not in the classroom can experiment with stuff like that. We can show these things to each other. And what I did at one point was our first assignment was to go through and make a lesson plan that involved technology. And I chose not to use generative AI in the first one. And the reason I chose not to use generative AI in the first one was because I wanted to see how I could do it with the technologies that I knew that I had in school. So search engines, libraries, typing, computers, stuff like that, pens, pencils, paper. And it was an editing lesson. Basically, it was the students were going to be in a time frame where they were editing each other's essays before submitting them to the teacher for feedback. And what that allowed the students to do was do two things. The first was it allowed them to use a tool such as pen and paper to edit each other's paper. And I said that it would be printed, but it would be typed, but it would be printed at first. And because it would be printed at first, the students would not be using their computers. They would use pen, paper, the dictionary, the thesaurus, things like the Chicago Manual Style, APA Manuals style, MLA Manual style, stuff like that. And with that, they would be able to go through, look at things, look for tone, style, diction, grammar, all that. I didn't even want them to have spell check at that point. I wanted them to just look through it on their own and see what they could do. And then the second part of the lesson, I had them do the same thing, but it was going to be on the computer. Every student has a one-to-one device in this example. So they go on their Chromebooks, they go through, they look through with spell check, they look through, they're able to search. They're like, I'm not 100% sure this is right. They can search and double check. It was just going to be like a simple essay about like the theme of a poem. And I was like, this is kind of cool. And I got a 10 out of 10 on the assignment. And the professor was like, I really liked how you did that. But I implemented a third portion when we went back in at the end of the class. We were supposed to implement a change to every lesson, no matter what our grade was, and implement a change based on the feedback we got. Because obviously we got feedback, but if you met the requirements of it, you did. And what I did was I made a third part where the students were asked to reflect on which was better or how they'd rather do it or would they like to do both. And I thought that was really cool. But then I went with this editing theme throughout the entire class. And at and like the third lesson, it was a longer one. It was like a research paper style lesson. And it was we're gonna go ahead and just do a long lesson on evaluating sources. So what I did was I had it was like the writing process essentially. They had this big thing on editing and evaluating sources because those are real big things for me is editing and evaluating sources. And I brought in generative AI at this point. I said we're going to use generative AI and we're going to have it generate a summary. We're going to have it generate blah blah blah. We're going to have it ask it a piece of information that's common knowledge. We're going to ask it for new information. And then we're going to go ahead and look up that information and verify it ourselves using either Google Scholar, or whatever, like JSTOR or whatever databases that you happen to have access to as a student at that time. For example, me as a student at my university, I have access to a lot of papers that I wouldn't. And that's why I want to be continually enrolled as a university student. Once I finish this master's degree, I am planning on re-enrolling as an undergrad and doing a whole bunch of really fun things. But I did that. And I chose to, because I wrote a 50-page paper on the Bible in the previous semester at the end of my undergrad, and I chose to continue using that as a theme, like historicity and history of the Bible and Hebrew/Israelite literature. And the ChatGPT and Copilot both gave me information that was right in some cases. Some of it was right in the cases of apologetics, but not necessarily in the cases of being factual. And some of it was just plain wrong. And I showed how you evaluate the sources and stuff like that. And that was pretty cool. Then we had another assignment, which was evaluate ChatGPT and Copilot for these things. So I chose to have it summarize the entire Bible. They both summarize the entire Bible, and unfortunately, neither of them got them right. In my Bible as literature class the previous semester, my professor spent one day summarizing the entire Bible, and it was sweet. ChatGPT had no idea what it was doing. And I absolutely loved to say that it was probably at about a fifth grade level, and the class was basically supposed to be about teaching from 7th to 12th. So you don't want to be having your students go down in grade level. And generative AI is something that's been a huge problem, and I'm hoping that we can figure out what to do with that. But I found it very interesting and enlightening that that was something that I was able to work with. Now, the thing here is we have generative AI is a thing. Students are using it to cheat. I've also seen a recent graph that showed that OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, is down like 90% since June. And it's probably going to be back up with southern states going back to school and colleges opening up next week. That's going to be rather exciting to watch that. I actually found the technology integration course very, very interesting. The other course, the big course, was digital literacy video learning, which is essentially taking composition, which is writing, and using it to create videos and media and things like that, which is a very interesting thing. Now, obviously, in ELA, you have standards. You have to meet writing standards, visual learning standards, reading standards, and you have to meet a lot of standards. There's a lot of standards in English language arts. English language arts has almost as many standards as math. Because English language arts also has, in addition to reading, writing, it has the digital video literacy portion. I would argue that the digital video literacy portion should be a separate course, just so that they can actually spend enough time on it to actually learn, and then they can use composition and they can take the skills they learn in ELA and apply those skills there, and they can take the skills they use there, apply it in ELA. Because yes, writing an essay every single time can get boring for students. Even me, I write essays in my spare time sometimes. I can get bored of that, and it's not great to have that happen. So it is what it is. But if you have the students make a PowerPoint, you can have the students make a video presentation, you can have them do something like make a mix. I also think digital video literacy learning is important because in the modern era, yes, you're exposed to the newspaper. Yes, well, it might be exposed to the newspaper, but you're exposed to the news in various formats. Online, sometimes you'll get your news via Twitter, sometimes Threads, Facebook, TikTok, sometimes YouTube. There's plenty of different places where you can get your news. For example, I recently learned of Victor Robles' 10-game suspension from Reddit. I went and verified that via the MLB website because I understood that Reddit is not a primary source. Reddit is a amalgamation of sources, and you have to go and double check the sources. It's just like when you use Wikipedia. You have to go, it's a great place to start. I can look there. Like the other day, I needed quick information. Monday, I needed quick information. Two pieces of information about Xanax. What? How long does it take to start? And what's the half life? And the reason I needed that was because I had a one-time dose for my MRI, and I needed it to take it so that during the onset of action, it was something that I took where it would be about that time when I was getting into the MRI scanner where it would be good. Wikipedia had it right there. It's 30 to 60 minutes. It's short, quick release, 11 to 16-hour half life. So that told me that I was probably going to be groggy. If there was going to be any side effects, it would be within 5, 6, 7, 8, 11 hours. And that because it's 16 hours is the maximum, 16, 32, then multiply that by 2 for the fourth is 64, then add another 16 is 80. After 80 hours, or a little over 3 days, the Xanax will be basically totally out of my system. Obviously, half life, and it keeps going down, 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 down until, but it's infinitesimally small. It's basically all gone. Now, if I were looking for more information, like the chemistry of it, or learning about where it was invented, or anything about like clinical trials or data about it, I would go down to the sources and look there and go into there. Or I would go through my college, I have access to PubMed. I would go in there and look for that. I can go on things like WebMD, which is a decent source for stuff like that for somebody who's not an expert, and it would help me. And I think it's very important. Additionally, we have television right now. Television's been around for about, what, 80 years now? But we've also got YouTube, we've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got all sorts of different stuff. And I think it's very important for students to become educated citizens and be able to recognize things like, are you being propagandized to? Is somebody giving you deliberate misinformation, which would be disinformation? Or are they giving you misinformation because they're uninformed? For example, I've given out misinformation because I was uninformed in the past. I also, because I'm a satirist, have given out disinformation. That's obviously because it's satire is supposed to be something that no reasonable person would believe. But unfortunately, right now, a lot of people do end up believing the things, which is how we get things like the Flat Earth Society. If you've ever popped in and seen the channel name, the Earth is a trapezoid, you're probably wondering, what does that mean? I was trolling flat earthers in 2021, and then we created the Trapezoid Earth Society, and it got out of hand. Now, overall, would there have been a good way to implement generative AI into the digital video media literacy course? Maybe. But unfortunately, it's not at that point. What needed to happen there was instead of using it as a way to brainstorm, it should have been us making a factual video or a factual PowerPoint. But instead of being allowed to double check, we would have had to use ChatGPT or Copilot and say, hey, this is the information, make the presentation and give out that information. Because by doing that, it allows us to do that. And obviously, we would not have points taken off for wrong information. We would just be evaluated on our use of AI and if we met the other criteria for the assignment, which would be make the video, make the blah, blah, blah. I think that would have been a much better way to implement generative AI into the course. And I think that would have also showed a lot of the flaws with the course. But due to the school receiving a large portion of funding based on AI and AI use and a large amount of AI stuff happening, the professor also very much believes in AI. Unfortunately, it didn't work that way, and we ended up just having an absolute shit show, and it did not work. Overall, my conclusion here is that generative AI is not something that should be used in education. It can be used in some very, very edge cases, but for the most part, it's just a predictive text model. So things like Cleverbot or your predictive text on your phone, stuff like that. Other AI, such as the AI that can identify a cancer, that are just really algorithms that are really good that humans have created, are good and will benefit society in the long run. But these ones that don't and just use resources for no reason just create a huge mess that we need to. Thank you for taking a moment to watch this video today. You can follow me at my other socials. You're going to follow me on TikTok at Sammy5436. You can follow me on Instagram at Sammy5436. Or at Samantha P54361. You can follow me on Patreon or other paid platforms at Sammy5436, including Ko-Fi and one where that's a little bit less safe for work. Patreon members will get Mariners recaps approximately 12 hours before others, as well as access to some YouTube videos earlier than here. I'm generally going to try to make one YouTube video a week available early by a week on Patreon. I haven't decided what, and that will start next week. You can support me on Patreon for $1 a month. Coffee is also $1 a month. My other platform is $6.99 a month. And you can also follow me on most other platforms at Sammy5436. You can also email me at SamanthaPond54361 at outlook.com. Thank you.